Hello, my name's Ajay and you're watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. Today it's a pleasure for us to have Ahlam Akram on the show. Ahlam was born in the occupied territory of Nablus in Palestine. And after a successful career as a businesswoman, she decided 10 years ago to become a peace worker and a human rights campaigner. Hence, she's written many articles for Arab newspapers and appeared on television many times as a speaker on issues related to Islam, Arab-Israeli conflict and women's rights. She's been residing in London for the last 27 years. Ahlam, thank you so much for joining us on The Defining Moment.
Pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, before we get into today's topic, which is about Islam and democracy, can you please share with us a defining moment from your life?
Well, that was a few years back when I took my kids to Disney World. That was at the first Intifada and in the West Bank, and seeing how my children were enjoying Disney World and all the Western world can offer to open the mind of a young boy. And I thought of my nephews, my nieces who are under occupation and not enjoying any of these privileges. The second time, which really shocked me much more, was when I was visiting Hiroshima, and I went to the peace camp and saw a woman who was trying to rescue her, to save her child in her arms and running with the flame catching up with her. I stood in front of that statue for about at least 10-15 minutes, crying my eyes out. And at that moment I realized that the pain any woman in the world goes through to rescue or to save her child is exactly the same. And that was the most defining moment in my life, which made me realize that enough is enough. I am a privileged woman. I can afford to do something good for my people and for the world at large. And I just felt that, okay, let me say whatever. If I can make a difference, I will take the risk.
Wow, what a contrast from Disney World to Hiroshima, all in the same defining moment. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, first of all, I'd like to ask you, which Islamic states do you think are leading the way when it comes to developing a democracy?
Well, I think at the moment it is two states come straight to my mind. One of them is Malaysia. Malaysia have managed and succeeded in creating an infrastructure as well as a good criteria for employment, so that at least you can observe all of these men and women at work and keep them, create the necessary security for the mind and for the person. The other country which has succeeded in improving women's situation is Tunisia. Tunisia is the only Arab country, Arab Muslim country, who during the year of 1956, Al-Habib Bourguiba, the late president, he came up with a legislation that completely equalized between men and women in areas of the right to divorce, the right to marriage, ownership, property in case of divorce, as well as many and equal of pay, so many issues which was completely unknown to the other Arab world. So I think these two countries have put their foot on the right way concerning democracy.
And certainly Malaysia is not a country that immediately comes to mind as being a Muslim country or an Islamic state. So it's interesting to hear that.
Well, Malaysia has succeeded in really taking the positive side of the religion in every interpretation. A couple of years ago, I happened to be watching television and watch an interview for the Prime Minister Mahathir, and I was extremely impressed with the way he has taken, updated, without going out of context of the meaning of the religion and the spirit of the religion, have managed to bring all the positive element to make the religion serving the human being for a better way, a better life and a better future, and connecting with the world. I was very impressed with that interview.
And you mentioned in Tunisia there's been a development in terms of women's rights, yes, or women's role in society. Now, in relation to that, I'd like to ask you about honor killings, this practice of women being actually put to death in the worst case scenario if honor is somehow lost, or shame in effect is brought to the family. Now, obviously, that doesn't really fit with a democratic society, but can you tell us more about instances like that, and why is it actually going on?
Well, it is a customary law, actually, which has been practiced during Jahiliyyah time. And although, Islam came and called for mercy for women and justice and equality, but the unfortunate thing is that it did not abolish the practice on its own. Although in Islam it has emphasized the sanctity of life, but it did not precisely mention this to abolish this practice. And unfortunately, with the laws of superiority for men and all of these things, there has been a misinterpretation of these verses in the Quran. Beside that, the religious leaders have used these for their empowerment, and they came to the weakest part of the society and put all their all their anger and all of their misinterpretation of the religion. Honor killing, actually, it happens in the rural areas, and it has been. The unfortunate thing is that the legislative system in some of the Arab countries or the Muslim countries so far did not manage to change it, because it is so deep-rooted in the culture and in the tradition. And there is this fight between modernity and tradition in the Islamic world. So far, even the legislative system could not abolish the articles that call for lenient judgment on the perpetrator of such a crime. Like, for instance, in Jordan, it is only 3 or 6 months, for killing, for honor killing. They call it uncontrolled rage, but in other countries, they are still fighting within themselves about that. But the strange thing is that honor killing is not mentioned in the Quran at all. And in fact, it is a custom which, again, was practiced by some of the Jews in those days. But the Jewish people have managed to update their understanding of religion. They abolish these things. But unfortunately, although it's not in any way in the Quran, it is still practiced as part of the tradition. And unless there is a change in the legislative system where they would put a much severer punishment to the person who does such a crime, it will take a longer time to.
And that's one of the key points, isn't it? Because people who are actually responsible for those deaths often don't get a very long sentence. In fact, they're actually applauded in some way by their own family.
The unfortunate thing, the society still kind of celebrate their cleaning of the name, of the reputation, clearing it, and But I hope that there will be a change. I hope.
Now, obviously, when we look at that as just one aspect of let's say, a tradition that's still in practice within Muslim culture, and we look at other issues, not just women's rights, but for example, other issues like sex, those subjects or those topics still seem taboo in a Muslim context. Why is that?
The unfortunate thing is that with this revolution of technology, and where we see television and we are connected to one another, the unfortunate thing is that the only thing we see from the Western culture, which is in many ways is based on human rights, too much liberty for women. All what we can see is too much freedom and the sex films and all of this. So that creates a conflict within the community between tradition and modernity. Who will win? The Arab and Muslim society cannot see the good sides of the Western culture, which is based on these values of the human being. Beside that, the corrupted regime is enjoying what they are doing over their stealth of the national wealth and all of this. So it creates a model, actually. And lots of people believe that there are the principles of human rights in the Quran itself. But my view is that it is time to really sort of take the common values of all the religions and separate religion from politics. We cannot let religions be a dividing factor. It should be a uniting factor. So therefore, all of these things is playing to stop the evolution necessary for these communities to come out of these taboos.
Now, this concept of honor, of course, it's not just in a negative sense. Honor is obviously quite a big concept in not just Muslim culture, but I would say in Asian culture in general. Now, ultimately, who's responsible for honor in the family or indeed in society or in a nation?
Unfortunate thing that although the honor is supposed to be on the male, this is his job, but unfortunately, women in Arab and Muslim culture are the bearer of that honor, and the way the woman behave or dress could shame or make the name of the family. Therefore, the women are trapped between the culture and the religion, and to get out and to be able to get out of that will take a real determination from the male himself to help the woman to get out. I'm not talking about just freedom of sex or anything. I'm talking about fundamental freedoms for women, rights of women for education, for choosing the partner, for right for divorce, protecting the woman's dignity in these cases of divorce. You see, unless we investigate all of these things in an objective manner and take religion as a philosophy of life, which could be and should be suitable, and get it out of the equation of the legislative system, in a way, we cannot move forward.
Well, bearing all this in mind, what do you think is the place of democracy in Islam?
Well, let's look at what is the meaning of democracy actually, and what is the infrastructure of democracy. The infrastructure and the basis of democracy is secularism. Secularism that allow the person to be free to choose, free to live, as long as he is not breaking the law of all, let's say. The fundamental basis of democracy is freedom and liberty. And we say, that we are all born free, we are all born equal. But unfortunately, the misinterpretations of these verses from the Quran have not allowed for the human being to evolve or to progress. So therefore, my view is that we have to separate religion from politics. Look at the Western countries. Western countries does not use the Bible in any form in its constitution. So therefore, to get out of this kind of confusion we are in today, we have to work all together on the universality of the rights of the individual, the rights of the people, the rights of everybody. So unless we allow these things, and unless we give the freedom for these societies to choose their political rulers really honestly and freely, unless you create a criteria, a foundation of a stability, economical stability and continuous stability, unless you have a complete plan to absorb all of these unemployed people, men and women, you cannot say that we are in the right way of democracy, or we can implement, or there is a democracy.
Although you mentioned in Malaysia, they've been successful in somehow interpreting values, if not scripture, into the way that the country is run, or how, let's say, the faith is practiced, at least in the kind of everyday sense. So what would you say are those values that can be somehow incorporated from Islam into democracy? Not the scripture, but the values.
The values are the equality, that we are all born equal, that there is no differentiation between any person and the other in color, in religion, in anything, unless we have citizenship implemented in the whole community, acceptance of the other, regardless of all of these differences, color, race, religion, all of this, unless we accept the equality of the human being, be it men or a man and a woman, unless we accept these differences and respect it, we cannot evolve. So these are the values which I think Malaysia has worked on. And it is so important now in the Arab world, in the Muslim world and the Arab world, to work on these values, taking the positive interpretation, not the negative ones. And basically retrain all of these religious leaders who have breached the worst hatred, and they use and abuse and exploited the ignorance of people in poor countries, and created thousands of madrasas for teaching the rigid Islam, the rigid religion. There is tolerance, there is understanding, there is forgiveness. These are the values which we need to bring it back, based on the religion and based on the commonalities of all religions.
Now, you mentioned tolerance, and I think in history, Islam has shown it has been tolerant, particularly of other faiths. So why is it that it seems that today Islam is projecting so much hate? Is there a reason for that?
Well, there are reasons for that, and it is unfortunate. First of all, the double standard the West have shown towards the most sensitive issues in the Arab world, in the Muslim world. The double standard in dealing with the Arab-Israeli conflict, as well as what's happening at the moment in Iraq. All of these are negative images of the West, which is projecting the worst from a Western culture, and that is coming to conquer us and to take our national wealth, and look how they are dealing us. So this is a fertile ground for all religious, let's say ignorant religious men, to bring the worst of Islam. And that is what we need to readdress. The West, there are two wrongs. There is a wrong coming, of course, fundamentalist views and fundamentalism that is coming from the Muslim world, but there is, on the other hand, a violation of international law that is coming from the West. These two things should be addressed internally. The difference is that in the West, you are going to find writers and intellectuals who dare coming and criticize these things, these practices. But in the Arab and Muslim world, it's very difficult to find somebody standing, because the acts of the West is silencing all moderate views. So this is where there should be a reinvestigations within ourselves, and to see whether this is going to bring us stability. Is it going to bring us security? And I'm talking about security in the meaning of international security. We cannot have international security so long as there is a violation of human rights in Iraq, in Palestine, in other areas. As long as there are corrupted regimes in these Muslim Arab worlds that the West is condoning and overlooking their mistakes. Yes, the alternative is very difficult, but you have to address the Muslim world with values, with our values. And this is where I believe that diasporas could be the bridges of understanding, the bridges of peace.
Okay, well, let's look at something that's happening right now. And let's look at Iraq. There is a process being set up, and it's still obviously ongoing, of trying to establish a democracy in Iraq. Do you think they will be successful?
They will not be successful, because at the moment it's been 4 years of liberation that it did not bring any liberation. In fact, it brought occupation, and it brought a miserable life for the Iraqi people. To move from a kind of you need to evaluate, you need to see the benefits of democracy, you need to practice, and it is a personal choice. You cannot impose it or implement it like this. So so long as there is occupation of Western troops in Iraq, it's not going to give the people the chance to think. They are the ones who should be thinking about their future. We cannot dictate their future for them. They are the ones who should be thinking at their children's future, security. At the moment, all what they see is an occupation that has come there to steal their national wealth. That's the main reason they went there. So get out, let's get out and give them a breathing space and help them from outside. We can give them, aid them in technology, aid them in projects, help them from outside. But so long as there is this presence of the foreigner in these countries, you will not allow the person to sort of progress or evolve, or the community at large to realize. I mean, there is a lot of people who says that we were always Sunni and Shia living together. This is what the West brought for us. Okay, fine. Let's get the Western troops out and let's see how these people are going to learn by themselves. And besides, who are we to dictate or to impose? You know, who are we? Why? This is not the way to let communities progress.
So you think that if the troops were to leave from Iraq, that we can trust that the people of Iraq will sort democracy out for themselves?
Look, there is nothing guaranteed, but nobody can teach a person anything unless that person experiences it itself, and it is his individual choice. So therefore, the unfortunate thing that Western troops went to Iraq against the wish of their own people. I mean, look at the demonstration which came out in London. There were over 2 million persons stood against the war. I stood against the war, and I still stand against any war in the world. The consequences of the war have been so disastrous for everybody. It brought us insecurity. It brought us hate from all angles. Let's review all these actions, and yes, let's get out. Even if we don't trust the Iraqis, it is their choice. It is their choice. And they're going to go through a progress. Maybe it will take 5 months, maybe 6 months, maybe a year. But eventually, it will be their own choice.
And Ahlam, have you yourself been somehow a victim in your culture?
Well, I could look at it yes and no. I didn't allow myself to be a victim. And I didn't allow my family to use me as a victim, or myself to be victimized. What I have used to get my rights, I really used the positive interpretation of every single thing in the religion to convince and persuade my family of my right for education, my right to choose my partner, my right as a woman. And yes, it took me a lot of nerve, a lot of struggle, which was accompanied with a hunger strike. In some cases, it went for 17 days. I mean, through my education, through my university degree, 4 years, every summer I would have gone through 1 or 2 hunger strikes. And of course, the family is afraid of the scandal. If anything happens to me, you know, why would I commit suicide or something? So eventually they would sort of say, okay, fine, let her finish this another year, let her finish this another year. So I would not be a victim, because if I stand as a victim, I will be paralyzed and I would not know how to think and focus on what I want and use the power of convincing, persuasion, logic, wisdom. And I managed with that.
And do you think that the next generation of Muslims, be they in the Arab world or in any other Islamic state, do you think that they are on track to do a better job, let's say, of bringing Islam and democracy closer together?
I sincerely hope so. There is a lot of a well-educated young new generation in the Arab world and in the Muslim world who is starting not questioning Islam. Islam as a religion is strong and but questioning the positive values of Islam. They don't want any more negativity. Don't forget that we are living in an interdependent world. Don't forget we have the TV channels in our own homes where we can see, we can learn, we can change, we can question. But the most important thing is, yes, I do hope that, and I am optimistic. It's going to take some time. It's not nothing. I mean, the 11th September have shaken the Arab world, the Arab Muslim world, and the questioning, okay, took a little while to start questioning why did we do that? At the beginning, we thought that it is because of all the evilness of the West and what they have done, what they have inflicted on us. But there are few voices which is coming out to say, come on, hold it. Again, what did we do to ourselves to help ourselves as well? What did we do? And there is a revision. It will take time.
And finally, Ahlam, what do you think you yourself, or what is the role that you or people like you can play in bringing the worlds or the Muslim and Western democratic worlds together?
Well, I believe that diasporas from all cultures and all backgrounds are the bridges of peace in this global village. And unless we play that role, we are going to be a threat in everywhere. We have to we are more empowered, considering that we lived in these countries and we practiced the equality, we practiced our dignity being protected everywhere. We practiced that I am equal to anybody in front of the law, superiority of the law. So we have to extract from these good values of the West and try to go back to our home and try to open this dialogue. We have really, truly, I think that there is a positive role for diasporas all over the world, because it's a small world anyway. It's no longer, it should be divided. We cannot afford division. And unless we look at these commonalities as a human being and bring a strong bond of humanity between us as people, as cultures, we cannot live in this world.
Ahlam, Akram, thank you for joining us on The Defining Moment.
Thank you. Thanks, thank you.
You've been watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. If you'd like to see more of our shows, we're on the web at www.definingmoment.eu. Thank you for watching, and we wish you all the best.